This episode of Around the Oval is brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage.
Hey, Ohio State fans, Alex Gleitman here, back with another edition of Around the Oval, brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. Our man Dom Smith is not here anymore, but in his honor, I will say our special guest today is Tony Gerdeman. Tony, appreciate you joining. It's the off season. How's everything holding up on your end?
Doing good, AG. It is both an honor and a privilege to be here with you. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And if everyone listening that subscribes to our channel and listens to all of our podcasts on the Buckeye Scoop Podcast Network isn't sick of Tony already, I'm not going to apologize. We know you're really just sick of Tom. Tony is the star of the show, which is why I brought him on and not Tom on. So we're going to talk a little team stuff. We're officially in the off season. I think the guys had their first kind of winter workouts and lifting this week. Coaches are on the road recruiting. So really in the hands of Coach Mick and the strength and conditioning staff at this point. And, you know, it's the off season. We reach for some storylines here. It's probably a good thing for Ohio State if there's not too many storylines during the off season. So we got to think of some stuff to talk about. And, you know, I think a lot of people are excited about what the 2022 season holds. Big overhaul on the coaching staff. And not only will that affect the product on the field, but it might affect the personnel on the field. And so in today's episode, we're going to kind of go position by position, talk about who we think are going to be the starters for the 2022 Buckeyes when they take the field on Labor Day weekend against Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman, James Laurinaitis, Al Washington, all walking into the shoe. So let's start, with the quarterback. I don't even think we have to spend much time on this. CJ Stroud.
I concur. Yes. And unless barring something unforeseen during camp. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. That's about the best bet there is in college football right now.
Yeah, that's going to be an easy one. And, Stroud, McCord, Devin Brown is the very likely depth chart there. Who knows if they bring someone in the portal. I think they should, just to get a Ford scholarship quarterback, a Gunnar Hoke or Chris Chuganoff type of player. We'll see where that goes. I'll shift to running back. I think it's just as simple of a decision, but Trevion Henderson, Mayan Williams, Evan Pryor, Dallin Hayden, Marcus Crowley. I think that's the room as of now. We'll see if there's any movement from now until the start of the season, but I assume Trevion is your guy here.
Yeah, although I wonder if Ohio State wants to make it that cut and dry where you're just telling Mayan Williams that this is Trevion Henderson's show. I don't think they want to do that. I think they want to maybe try to make it as much of a two-man race or a two-man show as possible, trying to convey that to him and trying to employ that during practice and whatnot. But yeah, I think we would all be pretty shocked if it's not Trevion Henderson, because let's not forget, Mayan Williams started the season and Trevion Henderson ended it as the starter.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Trevion Henderson from start to finish. Mm-hmm. That said, I do think keeping Mayan Williams around is important. So I think it doesn't matter who takes the first snaps. At the end of the day, they just have to convince him that there is going to be a role for him and a role where he can shine and star. So that will be interesting to see, because they also have to balance out Evan Pryor. I mean, Evan Pryor entering year two, he's going to want to see year one, you understand, but year two, full year in the weight room, all that jazz. You've been around the program. I don't think he's going to be thrilled if he's really not seeing the field all that much. So that's going to be an interesting situation for Tony Alford and Ryan Day to juggle, I think. But we'll see how that shakes out. Wide receiver, I think, is where we really have the first debate. There's a lot of good players in this room. We obviously know Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be starting, but where in that receiving, which position is he going to be? Inside in the slot, which he was this year? Is he going to move outside, which I think he's certainly capable of? So, Tony, how do you think the three receiver positions are going to shake out?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of wondering if Jackson Smith-Njigba should move outside. That's what they did with Garrett Wilson, but they did it because of Jackson Smith-Njigba. And so I would not move him. And I know you look, if you do move him, then you put Emeka Egbuka in there, and that looks really fun as well. but I don't think you move Jackson Smith-Njigba after what he did his first season as a starter, catching 95 passes or whatever, as what we thought was going to be the third option. And turns out, by the end of the season, he's the top guy. But I'm keeping him in the slot. I'm putting Marvin Harrison Jr. at the X, replacing Garrett Wilson. And then I'm letting Julian Fleming and Emeka Egbuka battle it out at that Z. And, Julian Fleming has been there for 2 years. Emeka Egbuka has shown so much promise in limited opportunities. I think Julian Fleming has had more opportunities and maybe hasn't shown as much, but they continue to go to Fleming. Fleming started in 2020 in the Big Ten championship game, started in the Rose Bowl over Emeka. So I think the key is whoever that third receiver is to make the fourth receiver feel wanted, because you saw what happened with Jamison Williams when he became the fourth receiver, he bolted. And so you need to make sure that Julian Fleming knows that he's going to be involved. And then you've got all of these freshmen coming in. You've got Jaden Ballard still, but I think it's Harrison, it's Smith, and it's either Egbuka or Fleming. And it's the potential of Emeka Egbuka is very, very intriguing. And so maybe at this point I would go with him, but Fleming is the veteran. So maybe the coaches would stick with him. But I think maybe by the end of the season, I know we're talking about Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame, I'll go Fleming starting. There you go.
Yeah, I think you turn on the Rose Bowl and it's going to be like that. Egbuka played a lot in that game, and I think that's going to be the case. I also think there's a role for Jaden Ballard. Whatever role Jamison Williams might have played when he was stuck around, I can see Jaden Ballard being that Devin Smith 9-route deep guy. I think that's a skill he has. And Caleb Burton, I mean, all these guys, Keon Grays, Kojo Antwi, Caleb Brown. I mean, Cam Babb is planning on coming back too. If he's healthy, he's going to see the field. They're going to find a way to get him on the field. So I think that there's going to be a nice, healthy rotation, but I do think Harrison, Fleming on the outside with JSN on the inside is probably what they roll with in game one, and we'll see what happens. But I do think Emeka Egbuka is going to have a big year next year and set himself up maybe to be the best receiver out of anyone in his third year. So we'll see how that goes. Tight end, very interesting position. I don't think Kevin Wilson coaches the position. He probably wouldn't be able to answer this correctly right now. For this, I mean, I guess we could consider Cade. We don't even know where Cade Stover, what side of the ball he's going to end up on, let alone what position. But Cade Stover, Sam Hart, Guy Scott Jr., Joe Royer, Bennett Christian, is Mitch Rossi back? We don't know. I know you just wrote about this on the site, Tony. Who's your guy at tight end?
Alex, I just wrote about this, like you said, and I don't know. And is Joe Royer, we heard coaches talked about him, talked him up during bowl practice that he was really performing well, but he didn't play in the Rose Bowl on offense. He played on special teams. Same with G. Scott. Like, those guys have both been getting better, but it was Mitch Rossi and Jeremy Ruckert. I think Cade Stover stays on defense, but if things go poorly at tight end, then they're going to need him maybe to come over. And I don't know that Jim Knowles will let that happen. If he likes Cade Stover, he's got a lot of power right now. And so he's probably going to say, no, I'm keeping him, find somebody in the portal, which we know they've been looking. I wouldn't be surprised at some point this year if Bennett Christian ends up being the number 2 guy or gets a start, because he's coming in physically looking the part where everybody, Joe Royer, Sam Hart, Jeremy Ruckert, had to add weight and strength, where and certainly Bennett Christian will as well, but he's already closer to the ideal than any of the other guys. I wonder where G. Scott is going to be at in their requirements for him in terms of strength and size and weight. So I guess maybe if they open in 11 personnel, maybe it's Mitch Rossi dotting the I. Perhaps there's actually no tight end. He's just playing fullback. But I guess I will go with Joe Royer with very little confidence, because I don't think it's answered yet.
Yeah, I agree. Spring's going to be big for that. Royer's my guy, though. I liked what I heard about him from various sources in bowl prep that he was making a move. I think he's going to just continue that trajectory. I think he's going to seize the opportunity and be the guy. If Rossi comes back, he'll play the same role he did this year, which is virtually that second tight end / fullback, wherever. It doesn't matter where he lines up. That's basically what the same role he plays. So if he doesn't come back, I think that's where it gets interesting, because that second tight end, you really want it to be a blocking tight end. They could catch passes, but they don't. The purpose of that second tight end when they go 12 personnel is really for blocking purposes. One of the tight ends at least has to be able to block there, right? So I don't know. Is it hard? Is it Christian? It's not Scott. It's not going to be Scott. I think Scott's going to be used similar to how you saw him used this year, maybe a little bit more frequently since they don't have one guy. But I actually think, I know this might be unpopular, if they don't see what things that they love coming out of the spring practices, I still think they're going to try to get a portal tight end. And I would probably insert that person as someone who's going to be playing a lot. So that might be my answer. But if I have to, gun to my head, people on the roster right now going Joe Royer. O-line,
yeah,
hot topic of discussion on our board. I actually have a wager with a board member on one particular offensive lineman playing 50% of the snaps in over 50% of the game, in 50% of the games, in Harry Miller. If the poster wins, if he does not do that, I have to pay 3 months of subscription for the member. If Harry Miller does play in at least 50% of the snaps and 50% of the games, they have to donate that same amount, which is about $40, to Harry Miller's charity and change their name to Harry Miller is the GOAT, their username. So I'm looking forward to seeing that username changed and the donation going to help those kids in Nicaragua. Because my starting lineup, and I'll go first with that being said, is Paris Johnson at left tackle, Matt Jones at left guard. I'll go Luke Whippler at center, Harry Miller at right guard, and DeJuan Jones at right tackle. Now, I could see a scenario where Harry Miller ends up at center and they maybe go Donovan Jackson at right guard. I think Enoch Vamahi, I know he's been playing tackle. I actually think he'd be a better guard. He could be one who surprises, but I will go with Whippler staying at center and progressing, and Harry Miller, comeback player of the year at right guard, potential all Big Ten candidate. So that's mine.
I like that, because you have a lot of Buckeye fans who have written Harry Miller off. And if you tell me he's going to be healthy, then I go back to the same thing that Greg Stadrawa said this season. Like, he's one of the best five. And whether that's guard or center or whatever, he fully expected him to be one of the best five, just needs him to be healthy. And if he's going to be healthy, I'm probably taking him over Donovan Jackson. And again, it comes down to that battle at center. Do you want to remove Luke Whippler from that after he's going to be getting better? He's had a full season of doing it. I think you kind of want that continuity there, unless Harry Miller is just by far the best. And I still wonder if they're going to work him at center, or is he just going to be a guard now? And, is your backup center Toby Wilson? Is it Jacob James? Is it somebody else? But I'm with you. I'm Paris Johnson at left tackle, Matt Jones left guard. I'm going Luke Whippler at center. And if you tell me Harry Miller is healthy, I'll take him at right guard. If he's not, then I'm going Donovan Jackson, and then DeJuan Jones at right tackle. I hear you about Enoch Vamahi. I want to know, is he a backup left tackle right now? If so, I don't think they're going to involve him at guard. They want to keep him there, but also you need these younger tackles, Grant Toutant and some of these other guys, and Zen Mahalski, to start earning their, developing into backups and into that two deep, because they could be called upon. So they need to start developing at tackle as well. And I think they like Josh Fryer as a guy who can play 4 positions, maybe even 5, wherever they need him. So he's one to watch. But I think that 5, if Harry Miller is healthy, I'm going to take him in that starting 5 as well.
Very good. Defensive line. I mean, look, there's going to be a lot of rotation.
Yeah.
We know that. Larry Johnson's back. That means there's going to be a lot of rotation. But there is starters. So let's go with a Leo, a strong side end, and 2 tackles.
The Leo thing, because I was watching the Big 12 championship game, and they play 2 Leos, and they play them roughly the same amount. And the backup Leo was the freshman All-American who had like 11 sacks or 10 and a half sacks. The starter had 9. So like together they had 19 and a half sacks and like 29 and a half tackles for loss. And from what I watched, they don't ever play together. And so, and to think like the sack leader was the backup is, again, just one guy starts, but they will rotate. I don't know that. I don't think Zach Harrison fits that mold. He's more of a strong side defensive end to me in this, but I also think JT Tuimoloau it's going to be hard to keep him out of the starting lineup, but those guys may be playing the same spot. So this is why I've tried to avoid picking starters for the defense this year, because there's just so many unknowns, Alex. And so then when you decided to do this show, I was like, oh, do I call in sick? I should call in sick. But I think everybody just points to Jack Sawyer as the Leo, and he fits the body type and the skill set. I think you got to watch out for Cade Stover in that kind of role as well, because he's probably bigger than Jack Sawyer right now. So I'm going to go, I guess, and even Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who is a smaller defensive end, probably fits that role as well. So, and this is going to be his 5th year. It's hard to imagine the 5th year guy not starting in front of the sophomore Jack Sawyer in the first game of the season. So I'm going to go a little bit different than I think everybody else here. I'll go strong side end is Zach Harrison. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point he's playing some 3 tech when there is that Leo. So it's like he's still playing defensive end a little bit. He's just tighter on the line, and then he's playing next to that Leo to give them a pair of pass rushers. So I'll say Zach Harrison is a strong side. Then Jerron Cage, nose tackle, Teron Vincent, 3 tech. And against Notre Dame, I guess I will go with Javonte Jean-Baptiste as the Leo, which I didn't think I would say until about 40 seconds ago.
I am going to also go a little different. I am going to say Zach Harrison is the Leo.
Okay.
I just think he's too freaky of an athlete to not move around the way that they move that position around. I am going to go Tyler Friday as the strong side end. I think, super senior and coming back from the injury, if he is healthy, I think he's just a better fit for that position opposite the Leo versus JJB. And that's just starting. I think Teron Vincent and Jerron Cage on the inside. That's probably what I think will happen. Now, that said, Mike Hall, Tyleik Williams, Jack Sawyer, and JTT are going to play a lot. So don't calm down, everyone. Calm down. It's going to be okay. Those guys are going to play a lot. It's Larry Johnson. Ty Hamilton's going to play. I mean, there's a lot of guys that might end up playing. So, but I think the end of the year, the guys who get the most snaps might look very different than the starting lineup I just mentioned for opening day at Notre Dame. So we will see.
I mean,
moving on to linebacker.
But real quick, Alex, just think of think about who started against Minnesota compared to who started against Utah. It was like a completely different team at times, where you've got Ryan Watts and Legend Cavazos out there and a whole bunch of different guys. So yeah, there's going to be some movement throughout the season for sure. Yes,
I agree with that. And, it's going to be it's going to be interesting. New coaches, everyone's got a fresh start, and opportunity, new system, opportunity, maybe where you're a good fit for this system. Maybe you weren't for the last system. We'll see. Linebacker. Who do you got, Tony?
I'm going. We're going with two linebackers.
We'll go three.
Okay. Three line
for the sake of just saying that there's three.
when they go with three linebackers, the three will be. I think Tommy Eichenberg showed enough to be the middle linebacker. I know Cody Simon started most of the season and was injured most of the season, so he was playing injured. I think Tommy Eichenberg closed really well. So I'm going to go with him, and then Steel Chambers at the will. I have no idea what to make of this Sam position in Jim Knowles' defense. And I don't know if it's going to be, at times, is it Cade Stover? At times, is it Chip Trainum? Will it just be a catch-all where, you know what, now it's Court Williams. Now it's CJ Hicks. Like, we're just going to put random guys at that spot and do stuff with it. So if they're playing, if they were to open up against Wisconsin, and who would like the three linebackers be, I guess I would take maybe Cade Stover as that Sam, but opening up against Notre Dame. How about, and again, complete shot in the dark, how about Court Williams?
That's a good one. I got Chambers. I think Eichenberg and Simon are going to rotate a lot. I think they're both good too. I think they both add value. I don't think they're going to have three linebackers on the field all that often. I think it's three safeties, two corners, two linebackers, and then four defensive linemen. Leo is kind of a hybrid to some extent. And then that third safety is kind of a hybrid to some extent. So yeah, I mean, look, I could see Simon Eichenberg and Chambers all potentially being on the field at the same time against the Wisconsin. I think Cade Stover makes a lot of sense too. Train him. It depends how far he comes along. Now Teote, if he's back as expected, he's a guy who could play a little bit in there. And I think CJ Hicks is going to see the field a lot this year. I really do. So I guess that's my answer. Kind of cop out a little bit, but I think it's going to be Eichenbergers or Simon and Chambers for the most part there.
Yeah. So. And there's just a bunch of different body types and skill types that Jim Knowles from time to time be like, all right, now I'm going to try this guy. Now I'm going to try this guy. Though,
I think you're going to magically see that group become a very productive group from one of the least productive groups. And it's not just about coaching. It's like, it's just alignment across the board on that side of the ball, from the staff, from the players, understanding what they're doing. I just think you saw that in 2019 from what 2018 looked like and the difference it made. And I know that they had a lot of NFL guys on that defense, but I think you're going to probably look back in a couple of years and be like, wow, I can't believe how bad the 2021 defense was versus what it looked like in 2022. And I think there will be some NFL guys on this defense too. So last position, because I think we can all agree, Ruggles, Mirko, and Bradley Robinson at the specialist positions. Let's go the two cornerback spots. Let's go cornerback to start, and then we'll go safety. Two cornerbacks, but let's go three because, Kerry Combs isn't here, but I still think that they'll probably at least try to rotate three guys.
Well, I think you start with Denzel Burke and Cam Brown. I think those are the two. And then you wonder, Jordan Hancock, Ja'Kalen Johnson, very highly rated guys. Where is Legend Cavazos in his development? You've got those three guys where if two guys are the exact same and they're right on the heels of Cam Brown and Denzel Burke, do they play four guys? And because that was always Kerry Combs' ultimate dream. I want to play four guys. He could never quite get there. And sometimes you couldn't get to three clearly either. But I think I don't know who that third corner is going to be, because I guess at this point I would say Jordan Hancock, because he played the most and he kind of came on at the end, and Ja'Kalen Johnson was injured. Legend Cavazos at this point is a little up in the air in terms of he was on the field early and then kind of lost his way and lost some playing time. And where's Seven Banks in all of this, Alex?
I was going to ask you. I mean, we haven't heard anything, right? I mean,
No.
he walked on senior day. He graduated. He was a mystery this year. There's a number of things I heard, and I'll reserve to hold them until we know his definitive future. Do they want him back? Does he want to come back? Is he going pro? Is he not? I mean, that's an interesting one, because if he comes back, I can't imagine he's not going to play in some capacity.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to come back. Just my hunch. I count without him like 18 defensive backs on scholarship without him. And I think the 5 corners, the Burke, Brown, Cavazos, Johnson, and Hancock is a pretty stellar group. Mm-hmm. You add a couple freshmen to that mix, things like that. You know, Ryan Turner, maybe Kai Stokes starts at corner, something like that. I think Brown, Burke, and I got Hancock, but I think both him and Johnson are going to be tremendous. That class, that Burke, Hancock, Johnson class, you're going to look back on that and be like, holy smokes. You know, it's going to be like an Apple, Conley, whatever, Lattimore type of situation there. So
that's another reason why I think Banks maybe not, you don't necessarily need him, because you're holding those guys back. Then you're holding some really talented young guys back. And if they are as good as you think, that class, you want them on the field as much as possible.
I'll piss some people off and be like, maybe that's why you don't want an Eli Ricks.
I agree.
I actually don't think that is the reason why Elias Ricks did not end up at Ohio State, but I mean, to some extent there could be a silver lining there. So we'll see. I do think they like what they got. Now, safety though is a little bit more complicated, because Jim Knowles, the 1 high and the 3 safeties that they used last year. I mean, it's not the same in Jim Knowles' system, but there are 3 safeties that are probably going to be on the field most of the time. One is still probably going to be some sort of like deep safety. One is basically going to be a strong safety. It's basically a free safety, a strong safety, and then a slot cover safety. So very similar to what they had in the past. How do you see that breaking down, Tony, before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. You got like the boundary of the field and then the slot guy. And I guess I'm going with Josh Proctor and Ronnie Hickman. And then in the slot, I'm going to go with Tanner McAllister, the transfer from Oklahoma State, who started the last 2 years. Obviously knows the defense. I don't know how much of an upgrade per se he is over like a Marcus Williamson playing that same kind of position. He's an aggressive guy, pretty good tackler from what I've seen. Watched a little bit of the Notre Dame game, and he gave up a couple of touchdowns in that one. But at this point, I don't know who else they have that can do that, because I don't know that that's Court Williams' game. I think we agree it's not Ronnie Hickman's game right now, maybe. And Lathan Ransom, I'm not counting on him to be ready to go. So I don't know that there's a lot of other options unless you move a corner like a Legend Cavazos or one of the young guys or something like that. There's very limited options there, which I think it's okay when you also consider that nickel is also sometimes going to be the Sam. Sometimes it's going to be Court Williams. Sometimes it's going to be whomever. And there's probably going to be 10 different guys that play in that 111 at some point during the season in important situations. So even if there's only like one guy that starts in that cover safety, that slot safety, I don't think it's if there's no depth there, I don't think that's the end of the world, but that's who I've got. What about you?
Yeah, I got Proctor. Obviously, I think as long as he's healthy, he starts at deep safety, free safety. I think Hickman, same thing, strong safety. I think he's going to actually be really, really good when he's allowed to just fly around and make plays in the system, be a little bit aggressive, because that's what he likes to do. And I think it's going to be Tanner McAllister. He didn't transfer from Oklahoma State and follow Jim Knowles for no reason. He was basically told, you're going to have to earn it, but you probably are in a good position. And to your point, Andre Turntine last year, freshman, he's probably not ready yet, but he's a guy who fits that bill, that could play that slot. I think out of the guys, the one you didn't mention that maybe could is Cam Martinez, but I think they maybe want to groom him for a different position, maybe.
He was
Although
playing.
Jansen Dunn, I also could see as deep too, even though he's coming back from injury. I think Lathan Ransom, I don't know where he fits. It's almost, I never wish anyone being injured, but him being injured maybe gives them an extra year with him because there's not going to be an expectation to get him on the field right away and things like that. I can't imagine he's ready for the start of the season or for camp. It's going to be a slow ramp up, I think, which I think could be a blessing in disguise to some extent with him, because maybe you could redshirt him or bring him along slowly and figure out where he fits in this defense, because he's not the cover guy, in my opinion. I don't know if he's the strong, and I don't know if he's the deep. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure that one out. So I just think that McAllister, Proctor, and Hickman are the guys, but I do expect Court Williams to play a lot. We talked about that third linebacker. You mentioned him. I virtually think that he will be in that position, guarding tight ends, matching up against running backs, coming downhill and playing the run. I think he's going to play a lot. So depending on who they play, I think they got a lot of versatile players and personnel in that secondary that they can mess around with those 5 positions. And let's call it 7 positions in the back 7. I think there's a lot they could do there. So I'm excited to see it. I think the defense is going to be a top 30 defense this year, if not better than that. But I think they're going to be a top 30 defense. And if the offense is as good as we expect it to be, there's no reason Ohio State shouldn't win the Big Ten, win the Big Ten and be in the college football playoff again. We're not going to go through the schedule on this show. Maybe we'll do that on a future show, but early prediction, Tony, and then we'll let this go. Ohio State win the Big Ten, back in the playoff next year. Way too early prediction.
Yeah, I think so. And because who's going to stop them? Is it, Wisconsin or something like that in the Big Ten championship game? Yeah. So I think they are there. I think the defense will get better as the season goes on as well. It'll start out kind of simple or as simple as a Jim Knowles defense can be. And then it will get better and better and more productive, quite a bit like Chris Ash's defense and like Jeff Hafley's defense just gets better and better as guys figure out their roles and coaches figure out what to ask of players.
Yeah, for sure. I just put an early 100 on Ohio State at 7-1 to win the title. I thought that was good odds. I think they got a great shot. CJ Stroud, I think, gives them an amazing shot, let alone the defense being fixed. If they had a top 30 defense this year, I think they would have been in position to win the national championship this year. So I know they lose a couple key players, but I think they got enough firepower on offense where the offense is going to be really good. And as long as the defense is there, there's no reason they shouldn't win it. So that's that. Maybe we'll do a rundown of the schedule a little bit in a few episodes, get Tony back on. But Tony, thanks for joining the show. Appreciate it. Thanks all the listeners. Check out all the great content at buckeyescoop.com, and we will see you next week.
This episode of Around the Oval was brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. If you've been thinking about refinancing or buying a house, check out our sponsor, Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. They offer low rates for refinancing and home purchase loans, including first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, and cash-out home equity loans. Check out revolutionmortgage.com/tpennington.